the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough to have with me Jerome Bailey Jr. Jerome, would you please give me a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm basically, to sum it up, I'm a storyteller who shifts thinking, attitudes, and behaviors and other people about God that goes beyond realization towards transformation. So I do that using poetry, sermons, service to others in all forms, video, photography, brand building, anything that I need to tell these transformational stories. Because the ultimate goal is I want to see others have breakthroughs in every area of their lives.
And your poetry tends towards the spoken word poetry. What is spoken word poetry?
Spoken word poetry to me is expression through word form of what you have on your mind, what you think about what's going on in the world, how do you reflect the times, how do you reflect your emotions. And I don't think you have to follow any particular rules. I know for me, the poetry I do, I don't follow particularly literature rules. I'm not, a lot of times things I write, I'm not sure if it's a particular type of poem that, you know, somebody who was studying creative writing in school would learn about, but I know what sounds good to me and what my audience likes to hear. And then I try to put messages that they can hear through using that style. So my style is, I guess, a hip hop type style because that's what I grew up listening to. That's what I was familiar with. So when it came to expressing myself, I went with the medium that I knew.
So how important is rhyming in the spoken word poetry?
I think rhyming, a lot of people don't rhyme. A lot of people have their different styles. For me, rhyming is very important because rhyming is, I think, what separates me from a lot of spoken word that I hear. A lot of spoken word has a speech type form. And what I like to do is have conversations with people. And I think rhyming kind of allows you to join the conversation because you can kind of bob your head to it, kind of flow with it as if you're driving in your car. So that's what I like about rhyme. So I really try to get rhyming in there all the time when I'm writing.
So rhyming becomes lyrical.
Yes, definitely.
All right, I'm going to ask, how much time do you spend creating wordplay?
Oh, that's a good question. For wordplay, so what I do, a lot of my best poetry comes in my personal time with God. So if I'm in deep meditation with God and reading my Bible, all of a sudden I get all of these, like drops. I call it like God downloads. Like I get drops where I have a particular notebook set aside for it, and then I just start writing. And a lot of times that comes fast. But then when it's time to put together a project, that's when I sit down, maybe get a thesaurus or something, and just kind of make sure that the things that I'm saying make sense, right? Because I don't want to use the wrong word. I might have got excited and started writing something with, and it might not even mean that. So I'm making sure, I'm fact checking. I'm a journalist too, so I'm always like about fact checking all the time. So I'm fact checking things that I'm saying, and I put it together later. So most of the time it's like I get the ideas, I try to write them down as fast as I can. I get certain word flow patterns. I try to write them down, try to organize them as best as I can. And then later on, even whether I'm inspired or not, that's when I take the time to try to put it together into a project that people can understand.
So I'm fascinated by the idea of a notebook. So you're in prayer, you're in meditation, and do you have a specific notebook and then you have a separate notebook that you use for other types of notes? Or is this journal is like super special?
Yes, definitely. My stationery is very special to me. I have, if I'm in a room with people and I have all of my stuff, I'm like the kid who's doing his homework in the corner while the parents are talking. because I have my scissors, I have my tape, I have all of that. And I like to customize my notebooks and separate my thoughts, because a lot of times when life happens, you could get overwhelmed handling multiple responsibilities. And then for me, I'm a media entrepreneur as well. So sometimes, I'm writing down, having conversations with clients, or writing down an idea, or I might write down an idea for some kind of video or something like that. So I like to, this year especially, I wanted to take another leap lyrically. And I wanted to really focus in on the craft and write more and write better. Because my initial book, Liberation, my poetry book, that came through a big series of life events. And I knew to keep going forward, to keep making impact, to keep saying things that I wanted to say in poetry form, I had to organize these thoughts that are now coming not as quickly as they came when I wrote that book. They're not, I'm not going through a lot of those type of situations. So I'm not having those experiences. So now I have to really take a stab at making sure I'm organized, and having separate notebooks for different things really helps me keep my thoughts together. So that notebook is special. I have a custom, I created this graphic to put on the front of it, so I know that that's what it is. And I have that separated, and I have other notebooks separated. So that really helps me. When I pick it up, my mind is only thinking about that, because I write notes in my phone and I write down lyrics as they come in my phone and stuff like that. But it's something about when you have that notebook that your mind is not thinking, oh, it's time to, I'm reading social media. Oh, I'm reading an article. Your mind is like, oh, this is a blank piece of paper. What was I really thinking about? And you kind of have to focus on that. So that's one thing I like about handwriting.
And you said you're like the kid in the corner when your parents are talking, and you've got your homework and you've got your scissors and your tape. So do you actually cut your notebook apart then and put it back together?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll cut them, I'll put them back together. I'll get tape and get blank pieces of paper, put them together, tape it up. I'll, as soon as I get it, I'll cover up whatever branding is on there, and I might make my own graphic, or I might put quotes or anything that I really feel I take my time with before I just start taping it up, to really see, okay, what am I really trying to say? And then I'll put that on there. And then even when it comes to making mistakes in the notebook. So a lot of times, I'll scratch things out. But one thing I've been doing lately is I'll put masking tape over it, so it can just kind of have a completely new thought right there, and not use up all of that space with scribble and scratching. I'll just put masking tape and then right over that, rather than white out or anything like that. And then when I'm finished, it also has this kind of appeal. If I wanted to take a picture of it or wanted to make it a keepsake, then I could. But that really helps me stay inspired. Just inspiring yourself with things that are around you. That's a big thing that I try to focus on. What do I have here? Not what do I need to go out and get? What do I need to go buy? What do I need to find? But what is right here in my face? I have tape. I have a ruler. I have scissors. I could tear paper with my hands. Let me see what I can do with this. And then I have a lot of craft paper. Not too long ago, I bought a lot of craft paper for a project that we never used the craft paper for. So basically, I had these big rolls of craft paper sitting in the house all the time. So I wanted to make use out of this craft paper. And I think that's what really started me making notebooks out of the craft paper, making covers, writing poems on them. And when I released my album, Liberation, I did scrolls. So I used the craft paper to create these 3 big scrolls that had all of the poems scratched and torn apart and pasted on there. So I love writing and using tools to enhance the writing experience.
It sounds so wonderfully creative. I think that's it's so beyond just sitting at a computer. You have the whole visceral of being able to touch it and see it and feel it. And I mean, even the masking tape and the pens, you can smell them. I mean, let's call it a 5-dimensional, because it's got all the senses going into this notebook. I imagine that just allows the creativity of the poetry to shine through.
Yeah, Definitely, you're right, because you kind of create this environment where it's just you, what you're trying to say, and getting it down, and it's like you're putting together a puzzle. That's what I like about taping it and cutting it. You're putting together this puzzle, and it makes you really experience your own masterpiece. A lot of times we see what other people are doing and we can get overwhelmed and we can consume and consume and consume. And then when we write something, we feel like, oh, this is not good. Oh, they might not like it. But it's your own masterpiece. You know, you have something to say. You decided to put it on paper and leave it here. If something happens to us, it's still here. Somebody could pick it up. We still look at pictures from years and years ago. You know, I was fascinated by pictures from, I think it was around 1920 or 1930, with, you know, during COVID, how we all have our mask on, and how we're living right now, with social distancing. And I saw these pictures from 100 years ago, people doing the same thing. So, you know, that really adds to, I think, some of the best writing things, stories that we still tell and look at and read today. They were written by hand. They were written like this. And I'm all for technology changing and embracing new tools. At the same time, there's just something special about penmanship that I don't think will ever go away.
Tell me about performing your work aloud.
Yeah, performing my work aloud, that's my fun part. That's where that I think that's what I was born to do. That's what I was gifted to do, to talk, to speak. So I know it's funny, when I was younger, I used to be what, I don't know, parents still have yet to explain this. I asked my mom this: what is a smart aleck? I can't find the word aleck. I want to know what a smart aleck is, but I had this talking back thing that I always did with my mom, and she said, okay, we're gonna have to use this mouth for good, because you in this mouth, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble if you keep this talking back going on. So she started to put me in speaking competitions and all of this kind of stuff. And then I really grew a confidence for talking out loud, because I've always been the kid who, like, if there was the elephant in the room, I would be the one to say it. So I think that goes right into the spoken word. I always think about, how can I be different? What experience can I provide? Because a lot of times I love going to poetry type events, and sometimes I don't really understand what they're saying. I'm like, man, are they just too deep? Am I not catching it? So I said, well, I want to do it in a way where people can get what I'm saying, and I have to do it honest to me. I can't change my voice and do the poems like that. I respect people who do that, but that's just not me. I can't do that. So, but I knew I had poems to say out loud. So I said, well, how do I find a bridge? And in saying it, pretty much rhyming as if you're listening to a hip hop song without the music, I think that adds a different experience, especially in a setting where nobody else is doing it like that.
I love suggesting to everyone that they read their work aloud, but particularly for a poet, how valuable is it to read your work aloud?
Oh, so valuable, because the poems become alive. So many people, when you write something and you that's it's almost like when you have a conflict with somebody and you're texting each other. A lot of times the text can be misinterpreted. People have there are many jobs that have been lost through tweets, right? So when we write something, we can definitely misunderstand what somebody is saying, but something about speaking out loud, where you have so much to judge. You have the lyrics, if you want to go read them. You have my body language. You have my voice. You have the tempo. You have my pitch. You have all of these things to judge. Whether when it's written and you only read it, there's only a certain point that there's only so far you can go. And also, a lot of people are not going to read it. Right. A lot of people browse through their books. A lot of people have books that they bought and they want to read. And as writers, it can be frustrating. Like, man, we put all of this work into creating something, and then, people don't read it, or it just sits, or you wonder. But when you're doing spoken word, you don't have to go back home and wonder. You're looking right at people's faces and seeing how they respond to your work. So I love that, the performing aspect. I think it adds another dimension. And people have told me afterwards that people who even have my book, they'll say, well, when I heard you do the spoken word out loud, or when I heard when I listened to it on the video or the album, it became a live. So that really stuck with me. Like, okay, so it's really adding a new life to these words for people. So I want to keep this going.
The extra dimension of speaking and then being able to see the performance is definitely something that adds value to the poetry itself. And I know that you do videos, so you create the videos with the spoken word in the forefront, but the videos are in the background. Is that really a complicated process?
It's really not for me. I went to journalism school. I went to Columbia Journalism School. I've been a news reporter and video producer for years. So making video work fast with different pieces and things you can find, you have to do that in news, because no matter what happens in life at 5 p.m., if you work for the 5 p.m. show, you got to come back with something. So I think that mentality carried over into doing videos for my poems, because they're already written, they're already recorded, because I made an album out of them. So there was still elements of the story that I felt like I still wanted to tell. I was still getting way too inspired and having this bubbling up feeling of wanting to say things that I couldn't quite say just through writing. So I said, well, what other gifts do I have? I said, okay, well, I have this video camera here. I have the, because I do branding work for companies and clients. So I said, well, I have this video camera here. Why am I not recording my own poems when I have the equipment, I have the idea, but am I just scared? And a lot of times I was scared. I was scared to take that risk, because when you do client work or you do something in news, there's a guaranteed factor there. You got paid to do something, you do it. You work for a show that's going to happen, you do it. But to create for yourself, nobody's telling you go, nobody's telling you it's good or bad, nobody is telling you have to do it. So to do it is a challenge to create the time and the space to believe in your ideas enough to do it. But I literally I get an idea, I'll write it down, or I might not write it down. I'll go pull up my camera, put a tripod, set the focus, all of that. I'll go shoot what's in my head. I'll bring it back. I'll just keep shooting until I kind of get what I want. If I see elements around that I feel like add to the story, I'll shoot those. And I think I have an advantage because this is the work that I do. So it's second nature at this point for me to create a video, but to do it with my poems. Now, the more I do it, the more ideas I have, the more I know I need to learn, because now I'm starting to study and think about films and video and want to tell stories in a greater capacity. So now it's like, it's an added challenge, because now I'm going to have to step into realms that aren't just easy for me or just second nature for me, or something that I haven't practiced a lot. So that takes some getting used to. And I'm always coaching other people when I'm interviewing them and putting them on camera. So it's a challenge to put myself on the camera, because it's very easy for me to tell other people, like, hey, say it like this or do that. But for myself, it's like, oh man, now I see what the pressure that people were under that I would shoot. But it's fun, and it's something that I really want to expand on.
Jerome Bailey Jr., this has been an exciting, informational interview. I love the whole discussion on poetry and how we can make it even better. I definitely want to start one of those notebooks. I think I've become a little bit afraid of my own creativity, because I'm trying to be relevant and keeping everything online. But I do like that old school. I think I'm going to go find my own and grab a pair of scissors and some tape and put it all together on my own. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes, you definitely should do that. That would be great. And I'm here to help you with that. And you can get in touch with me, my website, jeromebaileyjr.com. There is a link to the book. It's on Amazon as well, Liberation Poetry Book. You can buy the book on Amazon, just browsing, but jeromebaileyjr.com will get you directly to all of my links, of my videos, my social media accounts. All of my social media handles are at Jerome Bailey Jr. And if you want to book me to speak or to do spoken word in an event, book jeromebaileyjr@gmail.com. You can send me an email. And all of that information is all in sync together on my website and on my social media accounts at Jerome Bailey Jr.
Well, Jerome, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
I'm ready. I'm scared.
What was your favorite childhood movie?
Ooh, my favorite childhood movie. Oh man, rapid fire. Life. I used to like that movie a lot.
Life. All right. And if you were to go whitewater rafting, what river would you pick?
Ooh, the Nile.
The Nile. Very
Yeah.
nice. You get some nice scenery in there too, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
have to pretend there's no crocodiles.
Right.
They don't really count there. That's all good.
Right. leave it at a dream for right now. But if I'm out there,
And speaking of dreams, what is your dream car?
My dream car. This has changed over the years. Now it's a Porsche.
One of the SUVs or one of the little sports?
SUV. The SUV.
Yeah.
I'm a journeyman, so the Porsche kind of gives me the luxury, but still my journeyman, drive anywhere, live in the car if I need to, cook in the car if I need to. All of these, I don't really have to do these things, but they're in my head. So in my mind, I'm doing these things. So the Porsche kind of gives me that experience.
Well, if you got to live in a car, living in the Porsche would be the right one to do.
That'll be nice, a nice living in the car experience.
All right, Jerome Bailey Jr., once again, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. I definitely enjoyed it. Wish you all the best. I love what you're doing with this podcast.
Thank you so much. You all have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out. Boom, we're all done.
Bam. Thank you, Allison.
That was great. I really do want to get a notebook. Jerome Bailey Jr. is a master storyteller who shifts thinking, perception, attitudes, and behaviors with creative content, video production, compelling written works, poetry, sermons, and speeches by telling transformational stories that build dynamic, trustworthy, and leading brands. For more about Jerome, visit his YouTube channel at youtube.com/Jerome Bailey TV. For more about the Florida Writers Association, visit us at floridawriters.net.